All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. You were supposed to draw the following angle with a given measure in standard position, then find a positive coterminal and a negative coterminal angle. So 65 degrees, we're going to measure out from the initial side. We know that 90 degrees is here, so it's not quite that far. Halfway would be negative 45, which means we're somewhere right around here-ish, right around there-ish. So here is our 65-degree angle. And if I want to find positive and negatives, coterminal angles, 65 plus 360 is 425, yeah, degrees. And then a negative coterminal will subtract 360, and we'll get, excuse me, what would that be? Negative 295 degrees. So there's our 65-degree angle, and there are two coterminal angles, a positive and a negative. Next one, 230 degrees is, let's see, 90, 180, 270. So this is 270. So that's a little bit too far, but it is about halfway in between those two. So 230 degrees would be here-ish. And then to find a positive coterminal angle, I will add 360 to that, which is going to give us 590 degrees. And for a negative coterminal angle, I will subtract 360 degrees and get negative 130 degrees. And that's everything for those two examples. Make sure, if you had a difficult time with that you're asking questions. Otherwise, let's go ahead and move on to the next thing, and that is talking about radians. What is a radian? So a radian is another way of measuring an angle. So let's give an example of this. Degrees are a measurement that looks at a circle as 360 degrees. And we know that that's kind of broken up into 90, 180, and 270. And we know that because the fraction of a quarter of 360 is 90, right? This is a 25%, 1/4 of the circle, which means if I take 360 times 1/4, I'm going to end up with 90 degrees, okay? Because 360 divided by 360 divided by 4 makes 90. So each of these chunks is broken into 90 degrees, okay? Everything is based on this being 360, though, okay? A radian is a different way of measuring, and it measures it based on the circumference of a circle. Which, if you will remember, is 2 pi r. So, if we assume a radius of 1, that makes the circumference of a circle 2 pi. Which means if I do one rotation of the circle, it is 2 pi. And that's what a radian is. It is a measurement that has the circumference of the circle of radius 1 as its method of measuring. So a 0-degree angle pointing out in the initial side would be there. A full rotation would be 2 pi. But that means that each of these measurements are broken up by what the fraction of 2 pi they are. So for example, this same 90-degree angle over here, which we multiplied by 1/4, if we do the same thing and multiply by 1/4, we end up with 2 pi fourths, which reduces to pi halves. So each of these 90-degree angles in radians is pi halves. They make up a quarter of 2 pi. So this one's pi halves, but then the 180 would be pi halves plus pi halves, which makes pi. And then this one down here would be another pi halves, which would be 3 pi halves. So the whole thing is broken up as a fraction of 2 pi. And all of these angles in between are some fraction of 2 pi. So that's what a radian is. Let's talk about how we convert between radians and degrees. So if you want to convert something from degrees to radians, multiply by pi radians over 180. To convert something from radians to degrees, you're going to multiply by 180 over pi radians. So it's just you kind of they're reciprocals, right, when you're multiplying by to convert between the two. So let's do 2 examples. Convert 125 degrees to radians. So I'm going to take 125 over 1, and we're going degrees to radians, which means we're multiplying by pi radians over 180. So we're multiplying 125 by pi radians over 180. Multiplying fractions, numerator to numerator, denominator to denominator, makes 125 pi radians over 180. And then at this point, all you really need to do is reduce the fraction. So here we have 125 and 180. We need to look at that and find the largest number that goes into each of them. Let's see, or just as close as we can get. So let's do 5, right? Since they both end in 5 and 0, one of these ends in 5. Okay, so in our heads now, well, 100 times 5 is 20. This is an additional 1, additional 5 5s. So that's going to be 25 pi over, and then let's see, 180 divided by 5, well, 100 is 20, 200 is 40, but this is going to be less 4 of those, so that's going to be 36. And 25 and 36 don't share a common factor, so that would be our final answer, 25 pi over 36 radians. So you multiply by pi over 180, you reduce the fraction, okay? We are going to convert negative pi over 12 radians to degrees. And because we are going from radians to degrees, we are now going to multiply by 180 over pi radians. So negative pi over 12 times 180 over pi radians. So this is going to be negative 180 pi over 12 pi. And it's important to recognize here that the pi's cancel out. And so now we just have negative 180 over 12, which when we divide that is negative 15 degrees. So we just have to be really careful, reducing our fractions, okay, when we make these conversions. So that's everything I've got for you in this video. Go ahead and go back and do the example problems on your Canvas, and then the last video in the series here will give you some answers there. So we'll see you in just a second.